right, shalom, everybody. It's Shabbat Talk number 3. Got Brother Joel with me again.
Hello.
And this Shabbat Talk, listen, I'm one of you guys. Listen, I'm gonna add a little bit here and there, but listen, Joel is running the show this time, so I'm gonna let him go ahead and tell us what we're gonna be talking about, and we're gonna follow his lead.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite studies, actually. One of the most profound studies I've ever done was the Akedah, Binding of Isaac. Abraham going to sacrifice Isaac. So it's actually very pivotal to our faith. One of the fundamental things that took place, and so we're going to dig into that. I had studied several times. Never really went deep at the same time into other texts about it. So, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna dig into it real deep. I had left my notes. I don't have them with me, but I got a picture of them, so I got that. And if you don't mind, could you pull up the scriptures on screen so everyone
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with Hebrews 11:17 through 19. Because this here, Hebrews 11:17 through 19, really makes a big difference to the whole narrative. So yeah. So right here it says, by faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac. And he that received promise offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, Isaac, that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. That's very pivotal because, first off, it was a promise that God had made Abraham in Isaac to be called. So
you want to show them the scripture for that promise?
Yeah, we can do that.
You want to keep this up, or are you going to come back to this?
Yeah, I think we will come back to it for a minute, in a minute. So that's Genesis 17:19-21, I believe. So God said, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for I have heard thee, behold, I will bless him, and make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall beget, and make him great. But my covenant I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time next year. See, Abraham knew that God was going to promise, and he had already promised that through Isaac his seed be called. So, going back to Hebrews, 19, accounting that God would be able to raise him from the dead. So and from whence also he received him in a figure, right? Because in Abraham's mind, once he was told, kill Isaac, he was dead. Isaac was already dead to him at that point because he had already resolved to do whatever God told him. And it was by faith that he did it. Abraham was faithful. He believed God. And so when Abraham went to go sacrifice Isaac, he fully believed that Isaac would come back to life. But he was still dead to him. He was dead to him 3 days, no less. And then he received it back. Yeah, there we go. And the scripture was fulfilled, which said Abraham believed God, and it was imputed in him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. See how it works? By works a man is justified, not by faith only. That's James, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's later on in my notes. Yeah, good stuff. So Abraham was faithful, which means he could be trusted if he was told, right? I'm trying to read my notes on a picture. Sorry. So yeah, Galatians 3:6-9.
What was the scripture again?
Galatians 3:6-9. Yeah. It's right here. Even if Abraham believed God, it was accounted for righteousness. Know ye therefore that they which are of faith are the same as the children of Abraham. And the scripture, being that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. So then, they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. Because Abraham was faithful to what he was told, right? And had he not been faithful to do that, we would all be doomed, as we'll hopefully demonstrate through this study here. So let's go to Genesis 22:1-3.
Genesis 22:1-3.
So this is where Abraham is receiving the commandment to do this. And it came to pass before things, God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, behold, here I am. And he said, take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest. And that's a key thing there that we'll touch back on, because he loved Isaac. And get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham arose early in the morning, called ass, two of his young men with him, Isaac his son, and wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place which God had told him. So that's Abraham didn't waste any time. He was told, and the next morning he got up early and did it. He wasn't thinking about it, contemplating it. He just got up early and started everything ready. He was like, all right, God told me to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. From the time that Abraham was told that he was to kill Isaac, Isaac was pretty much dead. So for 3 days, we'll find that for 3 days and 3 nights, Isaac was dead to Abraham, and then he received him back, just as Hebrews says. So now the thing here is, what is a burnt offering? What's the protocol for a burnt offering? Because that's important to understand. It's not simply just someone killing, or it's not just taking an animal or in this case, son, killing and then burning. It's a little more detailed than that. So we'll go to Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3 through 5. So, if his offering be a burnt offering of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation for Yahweh. And he shall put his hand upon his head, and it shall be for him to make atonement for him. And he shall kill the bullock for Yahweh, and the priest, Aaron's son, shall bring blood and sprinkle blood about upon the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So you're going to put your hands on his head, kill it, sprinkle its blood. But now go to verse 6 through 9, because it actually gets a little bit deeper than just killing it. And you shall flay the burnt offering, cut it into pieces, and the sons of Aaron shall fire upon the altar and lay it in order upon the altar. And the priest, Aaron's sons, shall lay the parts and the head in order upon the wood that is on the fire, is on the altar. And his inwards, his internal organs, his legs, you shall wash with water, and you shall burn all of it on the altar to be burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire, a sweet savor. So it's more than just splitting his throat and setting on fire. He would have to actually cut him up and move his organs and all of that. It's not like a simple thing to do, you know. I mean, even if you knew your son was going to get back up, you know, walk up out of the ashes afterwards, you wouldn't want to like cut him apart and like mutilate the corpse of your son. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this was not a simple thing for Abraham to do, even though Abraham knew that Isaac was back. Yeah, he might have known he was going to come back, but you still don't want to have to gut him and pull his organs out, all of that, you know. And you don't want to flay open your son, you know. So it's a pretty big deal. Abraham was prepared to do it, no less. So we go back to Genesis 22, verses 4 through 5. Now here, on the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar. So it was a 3-day journey. And that demonstrates that 3 days, Isaac was as good as far as Abraham was concerned. And Abraham said unto his young men, "Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and come in to you." So he was saying right there, we're both going to come back. So that just goes to Abraham knew Isaac was going with him. So Abraham knew that Isaac was coming back with him.
So I know a lot of people, they hear the story of Abraham and Isaac, and it's often like depicted in this like really sad situation up until until you get towards the end of chapter 22. But like Joel said, man, like you got to understand, when you read this, a lot of times people don't really put two and two together when you see what he said. He said, we're going to go yonder and worship and come again to you, meaning they were going to come back together. And then when Joel mentioned Hebrews, right? When he mentioned Hebrews, Abraham knew that the Most High had to fulfill his promise, because the Most High has to adhere to his own word. If he makes a promise, he's going to follow through to it. So is it bad to kill your own kid? Yes. Especially make a burnt offering, as Joel just showed us in the scriptures, what what is actually a burnt offering according to scripture, all the things you got to do. So does anybody want to do that to their child? No. But when we read in verses 1 through 3 of Genesis 22, when the Most High said, go and take your son and offer him as a burnt offering, what did it say? The very next day, Abraham got up and did it. It didn't go into a long, drawn out spiel of how Abraham was depressed and he wept and all of this other stuff. Now, if you read in some other accounts, it does talk about Abraham weeping, but in the context of what was going on, it didn't seem like he was sad that Isaac had to die per se. It was more so just an emotional roller coaster. Like I believe in Jasher, it's either Jasher or Jubilees, where Sarah didn't want to let Isaac go, right? And so she was like giving all of these extra rules, and they kept saying, we gotta go. And then she cried, and everybody got emotional, and they hugged each other, and all three of them cried together.
Yeah.
But when you read it in the 66 books, it doesn't give that what's the word I'm looking for, brother? It doesn't give that.
It doesn't expound on it like that, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't give that feeling. When you read it, it's like Abraham, like you said, Abraham at that point looked at Isaac like he was dead to him, because he knew what had to happen for the Most High to keep his word.
See, because the Most High had already told Abraham that through Isaac was a seed to be called. So he knew. And Isaac was not married at this point. He didn't have any offspring.
Correct.
So he's like, well, you know, he's thinking, well, you know, I don't have a problem. God has a problem. God's already promised that. And he's got to find some way to fulfill it, because Abraham knew that God can't break promises.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. Isaac didn't get a wife until the next chapter. Chapter 2.
Yeah, actually 2 chapters later. Yeah. 24.
Oh, 24. Yeah, 24. Yeah.
So let's go to verses 6 through 8 and continue on. Then Abraham took wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire, his hand, and a knife, and they went both together. And I spake unto Abraham his father, said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And he said, behold the fire and wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide himself lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both together. This is important here, because this was kind of a prophecy here, because it said God will prove himself. That is the whole thing is the foreshadowing Messiah, by the way. I already mentioned that. The whole thing is that Abraham's acting out prophecy, right? And when Abraham said, "My son, God will provide himself lamb," who's he going to provide? Himself. He provides himself as a lamb. So, continuing on. Next verse. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and he built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here am I." And he said, "Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God. Thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me." Lots of things we can pull from this. The binding of Isaac, and I think we should go into Jasher a little bit here. I think it's important for us. Perhaps we can read that whole chapter about it. I don't have to do it right in a moment, but interesting thing here is you notice Abraham put the book on Isaac, right? Abraham's at this point over 100 years old. He's an old man. He's getting fairly feeble, I would say. And Isaac is, he's in his 30s. If according to Jasher, he was 37. Even if you don't subscribe to that particular age, Isaac was not a small child. He wasn't like a 10-year-old. Most of us have a tendency, because of images we've been fed, most of us have a tendency to assume that Isaac was a child at this point. But now Isaac was a fully grown man and well capable of overpowering his father. He was like, "Oh, you're crazy," overpower him and run off. But Isaac was fully willing to do this. This is the interesting thing. In Jasher talks about how Isaac was willing to do it. That Isaac actually suggested that he be bound, so that he wouldn't pull away the knife.
Another kind of hint in the video with Chuck Whistler, he mentions in verse verse 6. It says, "And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together." In the Hebrew, this right here doesn't say them together. It says them in agreement, like together in agreement. They were in agreement to go. So it kind of gives an indication that Isaac had already known. He already knew what was going to happen, and that he was in agreement with his father in obedience to not only his father, but to the Most High. But when you read the other texts, Jubilees and Jasher, they both indicate that Isaac was aware of what was the reason for them going to the mountain anyway, and that he was even more so in agreement. Because like you said, if Abraham's over 100 and Isaac is 37, he's in his prime pretty much. No way Abraham is going to be able to bind Isaac unless Isaac wants to be bound.
Yeah. Yep. No, he could easily overpower Abraham and run off and escape. I mean, it was not like Abraham was going to hold him down and do it. You know what I'm saying? So So yeah, Isaac willingly allowed himself something like that because yeah, as we continue going. So Abraham lifted up his eyes and look, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horn. Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up a burnt offering in the stead of his son. So that's really he was stopped killing Isaac, and then the ram was stuck in the thicket. Now there's all kinds of here. Perhaps you could, if you feel like you want to, if you can think of any parallels, go ahead and spit it out, man. There's all kinds of parallels here with Isaac and Messiah because, for one, this is actually the same place, the same location where Abraham went to sacrifice Isaac, was the exact same location as where Messiah ultimately offered himself.
Right.
Just as it said.
Absolutely. But I got notes. I just don't want to. Oh, you can't see. I got a lot of notes. I just don't want to. I want you to go through your notes, and then I'll go through my notes because I don't want to.
Yes, that's great. That's great.
I don't want to say something to steal your thunder, bro.
No. Go ahead and say whatever you want. So, the binding, because Messiah was bound, right? When he was, they arrested him, they bound him, and then the ram. See, it was a lamb that we talked about for the burnt offering, but it wasn't a ram. Now, the ram was substitutionary temporarily. An interesting thing, Akedah, the word Akedah was binding, right? It actually, the pictographic Hebrew, Ein, the Kuf, and the Dalet, right? Ein is the eye, or to see something profound, right? And then the Kuf is like the back of the hand, so something behind you. And then the Dalet is the door, right? Door, right? So here Isaac was on the doors of death, right? And behind Abraham was the ram that was substituted. He lifted up his eyes and saw the ram that was substituted for his son instead. Just really interesting.
The Hebrew language is so profound, man.
Oh man, it really is. It gets so profound, like words. We'll go off on a little bit of a rabbit trail, like the word Ab, right? Father. It's Aleph, Bet, and the Aleph means head or leader, right? And the Bet means house. So the word father actually contains the definition of the word itself, just in the pictographic meaning, because you've got languages, most languages are phonetic, they're all letters, just have sounds they make, and they don't actually represent anything. Then you have pictographic languages like Chinese and Japanese, where you're like, it's a picture or something, but doesn't actually have phonetic sound, right? But in Hebrew, it's actually both. Like, they not only have a sound that the letter makes, but it's also a picture or something. And generally, in Hebrew, especially ancient Hebrew words, you can determine the definition of the word by pictures that the individual letters that comprise it make. Very, very interesting. And so, yeah, and Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up the burnt offering in the stead of his son. Really good stuff. Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah Jireh, as it is today in the mountain of Shabbat. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time and said, by myself I have sworn, says the Lord, for because you have done this, and is not withhold your son, your only, that in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven and as sand which is upon the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and were together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt in Beersheba.
Want me to keep going?
Yeah. Let's finish out the chapter. We're pretty close to the end, I guess. Oh, yeah. This is just me. That's irrelevant to this. Sorry.
Right. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Irrelevant to this. So, the profundity of this is you had a father that was willing to sacrifice his son, and you had a son that was willing to sacrifice himself. And they're actually acting out prophecy. Just like when Moses was in the wilderness, I don't know, we probably should have led up to this, but as Moses was in the wilderness, when he was told to strike the rock and then water would come out, and then later he was told to speak to the rock and water would come out. Well, Moses was acting out prophecy. See, God tells the prophets, he tells his servant to say and do things. In Ezekiel, very often tell Ezekiel to do things, and it would seem very strange. He'd be doing all this stuff, but Ezekiel was acting out prophecy, just like Moses was acting out prophecy, striking the rock, and then supposed to have spoken time. And here we see Abraham was acting out prophecy of Messiah being sacrificed for us. The door, I think, is very profound in the word Akedah, because here we had on the door of death, about to enter through the door of death, and then he was released from that and didn't have to die. Just as we're all of us, we're all knocking on the door of death, because the wages of sin is death, right?
Romans 6:23.
Yep. But just as substitution was put in place for Isaac, so that Isaac didn't have to die, the same for us. Messiah became the substitute for us. And you had two fathers like to sacrifice willing sons in the same place. Just very, very as Abraham was acting out this prophecy, and even knowing that his son was going to come back to life, it was not any easier for him. No one wants their son to die, and it couldn't have been Ishmael was sacrificed, because Ishmael was not loved like Isaac was. In fact, in Genesis 22, when it says your only son who you love, that's actually the first time that love is spoken of in Scripture. First time that word even appears in Scripture, that Abraham loved Isaac. And it's not to say that Abraham didn't love Ishmael, but Ishmael was the son of a bondservant, right? He was the son of Sarah's bondmaid. So he wasn't the son of his wife. It's just like you see in pagan cultures, when they would sacrifice children, they didn't sacrifice the children from their wives. They had annual orgies where they would, get with temple prostitutes,
Like
And,
Saturnalia.
what's that? Yeah, like Saturnalia.
Like Saturnalia.
Yeah, where they would get with the temple prostitutes, and the temple prostitutes' sole purpose of mothering the sacrifices for the next year, right? So they didn't love those children. They were just sacrifices. They were fathered and mothered simply to be sacrifices, nothing more, you know. But here we have Abraham offering a son that he actually loved. The pagans wouldn't offer their own, like sons of their wives, because those were going to be their progenitor. They were going to be their offspring and their lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the offspring of the temple prostitutes were specifically for the purpose of sacrificing. But here we have Abraham taking his son that he loves and offering him. It was so profound, man, so profound. The prophecy of this is, in order for, let's step back a bit. So when God created everything, He gave dominion to man, right? So man has dominion over the earth, right? You'll never find in Scripture God did anything without one of the prophets either saying or acting it out first. You never find that, because dominion of the earth is given to man. Once it's relinquished, once God gives it, then He can't take it back. And that's because his system, it's a legal system. It's not, God doesn't break His own laws. And so, having relinquished dominion to man, the only way that He can do things legally in this earth is if he finds a man that's willing to act it out or speak it to everyone, right? So with His plan to redeem mankind through Messiah, He had to have a man that was also willing to do it. Otherwise, He legally couldn't do it. And so it becomes very profound that Abraham was willing to do this, because it would be hard enough to find someone who's willing to sacrifice a son that they love, right? But it would be way harder to find a man who's willing to do that and has a son who's also willing to be the sacrifice, but they did, and through them, they were faithful to do that. Through that lineage, God was able to bring the Messiah to come and essentially do what was going to happen to Isaac.
So the whole act of Akedah, the binding of Isaac, the instruction to offer him as a burnt offering, Isaac's agreement, Abraham's agreement, the 3-day journey to Mount Moriah, the ram being the substitute, all of that came into play as a foreshadowing, a prophetic foreshadowing of the Messiah's sacrifice.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 3-day journey, and that Isaac was basically dead to him for 3 days because he had the understanding that Isaac would be brought back to life, because Isaac would have had to live in order to be able to produce seed. So the Most High's promise would be fulfilled. But we also know from Scripture that the Messiah was dead for 3 days, 3 full days in the ground before He resurrected and ascended. So you have the travel time that lines up the figures line up, even the area. And that's why I went and got the video, because I wanted to show for those of you who are just like reading and you kind of don't know what we're talking about. Chuck Missler talks about the actual the geography of the area which Isaac was sacrificed.
Yeah.
Can you hear this, brother, if I hit play?
A place called Mount Moriah.
Yeah, I can hear it.
You can hear it? Okay, I'm gonna quickly play this. It's only about a minute or so when he goes into the geography, but it's important to know that Abraham and Isaac are playing out the roles of the Most High and the Messiah. And it's all of these things are happening to the T, like it's so precise.
Mm-hmm.
Have a profile here, a topological thing. Moriah is actually a ridge system. It starts about 600 meters above sea level. It rises up to about 740 meters above sea level, which is the area that we think of as the Temple Mount. And then, but that's not the peak. The peak is further to the north, and we'll amplify this a little bit. I might notice that there's a mountain to the left called Mount Zion. There's a Tropian Valley, which is now filled, but it was a valley originally. And then we have Mount of Olives to the east and the Kidron Valley between. And so to the south, we have the Hinnom Valley. And that's the area we're dealing with. But Salem is down at the south end. And obviously, Abraham didn't offer him in town. He went further north, out of town, is the point I'm making. That's Salem is a settlement of the Jebusites. The thrashing for Araunah that later David will purchase is at that saddleback, apparently. But at the very top is the peak, a place where the Akedah takes place. And if you amplify this, that's a place that we know as Golgotha. And I hold the view, for a lot of reasons, that's exactly where Abraham see, the Jews have a tradition that Abraham offered Isaac where the temple stood, but there's no evidence of that. The indication is further to the north, it's up at a place called Golgotha, but that's a whole other study. I won't take the time here.
So for those of you guys who haven't put it together yet, Golgotha, also translated as the place of the skull, is where the Messiah was crucified. Well, he started off not in Golgotha, and he had to carry the cross up to Golgotha. So if you're going back to that,
same as Isaac carried the wood for the burnt offering.
Oh my goodness, I didn't think about that. Yeah. So hold on, let me back it up. Let me back it up a little bit. So you look at the temple here. This is where the temple would have stood, right? So it's a distance of not only like lateral distance, but vertical, because you're going on an incline. This is the highest point, right? So the Messiah had to carry his cross, and Isaac had to carry the wood for the burnt offering, which would both have been instruments of their own destruction, basically. Like the wood would have been burned, and that would have killed Isaac, right? Well, not killed him. He would have already been stabbed, but it's part of the process. And the cross, he would have been crucified to the cross. So the wood from the cross and the wood from the burnt offering are symbolic, and they are related to each other. They're connected. But yeah,
and then right there, man. The same location, no less.
Same location, same area, same location. Same.
They were both bound. They both had to carry the instruments of their demise. They went to the exact same location, and technically, it was the Father sacrificing them, because at any point, Messiah could have been saved from that, you know. Yeah, and then they were both willing, and then the ram caught in the thicket. Thicket is a thorn bush, right? So the thicket that the ram was caught in is a thorn bush, and I had a crown of thorns on its head.
Absolutely.
Just so many beautiful parallels between this. And you know, as you go through Jasher, you see the more of the emotions because Genesis is just kind of it gives an overview, it tells the basics, what happened, like a.
I'm on. Yeah.
But you read Jasher, you see all the emotions that's involved in it. Like um, Abraham really loving Isaac, and Isaac really loving God so much he's willing to do it. You know, because most children would be like, "No, you're crazy, Dad. I'm leaving."
Yeah.
You ain't gonna kill me. But Isaac was just like, "No, do it." And Isaac actually in Jasher, Isaac was the one that suggested he would be bound. He said, "Bind me so that when you bring the knife down, I don't move and ruin the sacrifice." You know. Um, just
Most of my notes are from Jasher, actually.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Because honestly, man, I've listened to the audio of Dasher while I was driving like 3 times through,
Yeah.
and it was great. I made a bunch of mental notes, but as we were talking about earlier, I forgot most of them before I got to write them down. So yeah, if your notes are from Jasher, man, because I wanted to include a bunch of that.
Yeah, I can pull up Jasher. But
Yeah.
I wanted to hit on this just last little point right here. It's when Isaac was asking about, the lamb for the burnt offering, right? He said, behold the fire in the wood, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, the Most High will provide himself a lamb for the burnt offering, right? And then it says, so they went both of them together. Again, the same word that's used here is the same word that's used earlier in the Hebrew. Is talking about an agreement. So yes, you can read it as together, and that's how the translators put it. But it also has more meaning in the Hebrew. Together meaning in agreement. And so when Isaac asked that question, Abraham responded, it's significant because the Most High did provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering because one, he substituted Isaac with a ram. So that's the first one. That's just the surface level. But then when you look into the prophetic aspect of it, he provided himself a lamb because the Messiah is called the Lamb of the Most High, right?
Yeah.
And so
John said.
That lamb, the Lamb of the Most High, is the one that the Most High provided himself because he himself is the one who provided the lamb. Right? Like in the New Testament, there was a part where even the Messiah was like, can you take this cup from me? Right? He was having some doubts, but he understood the assignment. He understood that he had to go through with everything and complete it to fulfill the prophecy, to fulfill what had already been brought about, to not only just from Abraham, but even before Abraham, going all the way back to Adam. When Adam fell and the dominion of earth was stripped away from Adam, and we were now given into a world of sin, he had to basically remedy that entire situation, going all the way back to Adam. So absolutely, I just wanted to point that one out.
Yeah.
But I will pull up.
And the ram actually is where, because whenever the priests would go to enter the tabernacle, to sacrifice a ram for themselves, the priests couldn't go to the tabernacle without sacrificing a ram for themselves first. That's where the ram came from in there. But then now it was the burnt offering was supposed to be a lamb, not a ram. Ram was only a substitution for the moment because the true lamb was coming way later. So good stuff.
It's kind of small. Let me get this. I believe it came into play.
You want to probably go to like verse 40.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead with this. I'll be right back.
You said what?
I'll be right back. Go ahead with this if you want to. I'll be right back.
All right, so it says, and Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days, and Abraham, his father, taught him the way of the Most High, to know the Most High, and the Most High was with him. And when Isaac was 37, like we said earlier, Isaac was in his 30s. Now, whether or not you agree with the book of Jasher, whether you believe it's canon or not, or whatever the case may be, the fact is Abraham was 100 when he had Isaac, and that's fact. And it had to be some years after that, obviously, because Isaac had to be born and Isaac had to grow up, right? And so, and when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael, his brother, was going about with him in the tent, and Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac. Let me just scroll down further. Um, 44 says, as the Most High liveth, the Elohim of my father Abraham, if the Most High should say unto my father, take now thy son Isaac and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it, right? Meaning I would do it in agreement. And the Most High heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of the Most High, and he thought to try Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of Elohim came and placed themselves before the Most High, and Satan also came with the sons of Elohim before the Most High. So this is basically similar to the story of Job, where there was an assembly of angels before the Most High, and Satan came and approached. And if you know the story of Job, basically how Satan tried to basically say that Job wasn't faithful, and that, you know, Job was only faithful to the Most High because of all of the things that the Most High had blessed Job with, even though Job was a righteous man. So the Most High agreed to let Satan harm and do certain things to Job in order to prove his faithfulness. And obviously Job passed that test. Well, this is very similar to that. It says, and the Most High said unto Satan, whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Most High and said, from going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. So it's kind of very similar to Job. Okay, it says, and the Most High said to Satan, why is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Most High and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve thee and remember thee when they require anything from them. Basically, I've been watching people, and yeah, they serving you and they calling out to you when they need you, right? And then he says, and when thou givest them the thing which they require from thee, they sit at their ease and forsake thee, and they remember thee no more. So basically, once you answer their prayers, once you save them from their situations, once you give them what they want, then they don't want anything to do with you, right? And so he responded. It says, how thou seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served thee and erected altars to thee wherever he came, and he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken thee. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and the Most High he has forgotten. For amidst all that he has done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering nor peace offerings, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Weaned meaning basically giving them milk from the breast. Even from the time of his son's birth to now, being 37 years, he built no altar before thee, nor brought any offering to thee. For he saw that thou didst give what he requested before thee, and he therefore forsook thee. So this is basically Satan trying to bait the Most High. He's talking about, yeah, you see Abraham, you know what I'm saying? Like, he hasn't prayed to you. He hasn't given altars to you. As soon as he got his son, he just kind of forgot about you and everything like that. So the Most High responded, and the Most High said to Satan, hast thou thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that feareth the Most High and avoideth evil. As I live, were I to say unto him, bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or herds, right? So he said two different things there. He said if he wanted to give Isaac to the Most High, and then he also said in a separate context, offering a burnt offering that Abraham will be willing to do it. And it says, and Satan answered the Most High and said, speak then now unto Abraham as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. And this is the reason why I like Jasher and I like Jubilees and a lot of the other writings, is because they fill in the blanks and they give a lot more, they expound a lot more from what the main text in the 66 books talks about. Like Genesis is specific, but it's also very general and vague in certain instances, right? So like I said, this story is very similar to the story of Job. And so you see that not only did the Most High say that Abraham is willing to give his son or give a burnt offering, he put them both together and said, all right, because when Isaac said earlier, when he was talking to Ishmael, he said that if my father wanted to provide a burnt offering, then I would be more than willing to be in agreement with that. Meaning he probably would have been willing to help his father and different things like that. But all of those different things were separate. And the Most High was like, I'm gonna do you one better. Let me merge them all together. Not only is it gonna be a burnt offering, and his son is gonna be the burnt offering. And so it was just all a response to Satan. Like, if you think you got some, what you call it, some confidence, you need to take a page out of the Most High book. The Most High will show you exactly what confidence is. And so that's what's, kicks everything off. So what we read in the book of Genesis chapter 22 is actually a response. Yes, it's a prophetic foreshadowing of what's to come and what's supposed to happen, but it's also a response to what's happening in the heavenly realm as well. From what we don't see with our own eyes, right? Like when we read Job, we read about what's happening to Job, but that's what the people see with their eyes. What they didn't see with their eyes is what the beginning of Job talked about and how things were happening in the heavenly realm, which caused the Most High to act, right? So chapter 23, and it says, at that time, the word of the Most High came to Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. And he said to him, take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which shall be shown to thee. For there wilt thou see a cloud and the esteem of the Most High. And Abraham said within himself, how shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah, his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before the Most High? And Abraham came into the tent, and he said before Sarah, his wife, and he spoke these words to her. So basically, this account of the whole thing is, like Joel said, is giving more emotion, more feeling. It's like expounding on certain things. It kind of highlights Sarah's relationship with her son, how much she loved him, how much he loved her, their relationship, their bond. It also talks about, you kind of get some indication, a little peek behind the curtain of the dynamic between Abraham and Sarah, right? In typical husband fashion, right? When we get asked to do something, like you ask me, hey boss, can you think you free to hang out this weekend? I'm gonna be like, okay, let me check with the wife. You feel me? Like I'm gonna check with her to see what we got planned, you know what I mean, before I do anything. It's kind of similar, like you see a different, well, I ain't gonna say it different. You just see what Genesis isn't saying, right? You see some different things what Genesis isn't saying. And basically, if you read through these verses, when he's talking to Sarah, and she's like,
another thing you'll notice here is that Abraham never questioned whether or not he would do it. Even though he knew Sarah was all depressed and everything, he never questioned whether he was going to do it. He just said, "How am I going to do this? How am I going to get her?"
Facts. How am I going to be able to get Isaac away from her without killing her? Because happy wife, happy life. Abraham knew that eventually, after the journey up to the mountain and coming back, he was gonna have to deal with his wife again.
Yeah.
And if she knew what his intent was and to do it, you feel me? Like she
like,
probably would have had a problem with them going in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But hold on, let me see how far ahead my notes are. So we mentioned Isaac being 37. Something that I noticed too, bro, I don't know if you caught this, was, and I don't know if this is actually the word of the Most High, but you already know my stance with the word of the Most High. Whenever you see the word of the Most High, it's the Messiah, not the Most High himself. The only difference here is when it says the word of the Most High came to Abraham. When you read into the other two accounts, the accounts in Jubilees and the accounts in Genesis, it seems as though it is the Most High himself that's actually speaking in those accounts. So
if you go into the Targums, actually, the Targums almost always say the Messiah.
You said the Targums almost say when? What?
The Targums pretty much always say the word of the Most High. The Targums are Aramaic text of Torah, so they're older, because the Masoretic text is fairly new, right? The Targums are older, and almost all the time, Targums say the word of the Messiah.
Okay, but I didn't have a lot of backing. I just made a note like, this is interesting. It stood out to me. Every time I see the word of the Most High came to whoever, I'm automatically gonna be like honed in on it because of my past studies. But let me see.
Well, because it really was the entire time, the entire Old Testament, it was really Messiah that they were dealing with. It was never really them dealing with the Most High directly. But it's just a side thing.
Yeah, all my other notes are like verse 50 and higher. But basically, you scroll down. This is basically them trying to get away from Sarah. She's being overly emotional as a protective mother, right? It says, "I pray thee, take heed of my son and place thy eyes over him." So basically, make sure you keep your eye on him. "For I have no other son nor daughter but him. Oh, forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread. Oh, if he hungry, feed him." Like, Abraham knows that he gonna take care of his son.
Right.
In typical mother fashion, right? If he be thirsty, give him water. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Like, she was just like super overly emotional.
That's also another interesting thing. Isaac went on, he rode on the ass, just like Messiah when he came into Jerusalem was on the ass.
That's another one. I guess Sarah could be also playing the role of Mary too, huh?
Yeah, so.
Let's see. Scroll down. And this is the part I was telling you, like, they wept together. Like, They still wept together, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. And Sarah afterward turned away from her son, weeping bitterly, and all her men servants and maid servants returned with her to the tent. So like this was like the more emotional account of everything. And we've read from the scriptures and other accounts that Abraham had no objection to what he was instructed to do. So when it comes to weeping, it was more so a weeping of I shouldn't, basically like I shouldn't have to, or I would prefer not to have to do this to my son, but I'm willing to do it because I know what the Most High promised me. I'm going to be obedient to him, and I know that in the end, obviously Isaac is going to be okay. But I think
again, you have Messiah in the garden, weeping and praying that the cup would be taken from him. You know, if it was possible.
Absolutely. And so they all wept together. And I also think this was kind of like one of the, when you cry, you're gonna make me cry. Like stop crying because your emotions gonna rub up on me, and we all just together in one this big ball of sadness. I think it's kind of one of those situations too. And so the Jasher accounts identifies the young men that Abraham took as Ishmael, his son, and Eliezer, his servant. And that isn't spoken about in the scriptures. It just keeps them labeled as two servants. So that was something interesting to mention. Something else.
They're going to bicker about who's going to get the inheritance.
Yeah, they was bickering. It says, and they went together with them, and whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eliezer, now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Most High, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. And Eliezer answered Ishmael and said, surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldest not inherit anything of all he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has with all his treasures? But unto me, his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desireth me. To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses. So they basically just on some.
They're all like, I'm going to get all the possessions.
I'm getting all of it, yeah. And so, and this one, Satan, obviously, just like in the book of Job, he comes and he tries to insert himself and tempt and confuse and just mess it up. So basically, he wants to set it up so that he's right, and his bet with the Most High is won. So it says, he appeared unto Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, art thou silly or brutish that thou goest to do this thing this day to thy only son? And then he says, for the Most High gave thee a son in the latter days in thy own age, and wilt thou go and slaughter him this day because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only son to perish from the earth? So he basically saying, the Most High blessed you with this son in your old age, mind you. So his birth being that old is a miracle in itself, and you just gonna throw all of that away, and he ain't do nothing wrong. Like he was just basically trying to, trick them. And then he says, does thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the Most High? For the Most High cannot do unto man such evil upon earth, to say to him, go slaughter thy child. So this is what Satan does, man. He will twist and contort the truth and make you think that what he's saying is actually true, because the Most High is not evil, right? And we know that the Most High isn't going to just tell you to slaughter someone for no apparent reason, right? And
so he's going to confuse them. He's trying to confuse them and make them think, oh no, this isn't right,
Yeah.
And on the surface it appears to be wrong, but you don't realize what Abraham knew, as we find out here in a second, Abraham knew this or heard this and knew it was the word of Satan. So Abraham knew. Abraham wasn't fooled, but most people would have been fooled and been like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Oh yeah, God wouldn't really want me to do this." You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And he rebuked him and went on his way.
Mm-hmm.
And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared. So he tried the same thing with Isaac. And Abraham basically told him, like, look, that's Satan, don't listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept on their journey. Then Satan appeared and as a basically like a river. And Abraham remembered that river wasn't there before. And so he rebuked Satan again. And definitely on your own time, go and read this entire chapter. We're not trying to omit certain things. We just trying to save y'all time, because if we go through this whole chapter, it's huge.
It's long.
Yeah, it's a long
like
chapter.
70 verses.
Yeah, it's crazy.
90 maybe or something. Long.
Yep. Oh, here's one that's important. It says, and on the third day, remember we told y'all 3 days. Even the Joshua account mentions the 3 days. It says Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance, which the Most High had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared unto him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of esteem upon the mountain. And the esteem of the Most High was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, my son, dost thou see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance, that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said unto his father, I see a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the esteem of the Most High is seen upon the cloud. See, this is another thing. Like, this is why I like these extra accounts, because it gives more information. This is why Abraham didn't bring his 2 servants with him. Because making an altar is a lot of work. You have to like get all the stones, you have to get the dirt, and you have to put it all together. It's a lot of work. So having 2 extra hands would have made sense. But in the scriptures, it say, you know, how he told them, you know, you guys stay here. Me and the lad is gonna go up. We're gonna worship, and we're gonna come back. You're like, yeah, like when I first read it, the first time I've ever read that scripture, and this was probably about 15 years ago. I was like, did he just leave them there because he didn't want them to know that he was gonna kill his son, and he didn't want them to see it? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my initial thought. But now it makes sense, right? It makes sense. So he asked his son, could he see the pillar of fire in the cloud? Isaac said, yes. It says, and Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the Most High for a burnt offering. So that gave confirmation, right? On his way, he looked up and he saw everything that was up there, right? It says, and Abraham said unto Eliezer and unto Ishmael his son, do you also see that which we see upon the mountain, which is at the distance? So he was asking them to see if they were accepted of the Most High, because he was trying to determine whether or not he was going to take them with him and Isaac, right? And they answered and said, we see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before the Most High to go with them. And Abraham said to them, abide ye here with the ass, whilst I and Isaac my son will go to yonder mountain and worship there before the Most High, and then return to you. So now we see 2 separate accounts. We see the account in Genesis 22, where he tells them to stay and he's gonna come back. But in this account in Joshua, but in both accounts, he says that both him and Isaac is gonna return. Think about that. If he was gonna actually kill and sacrifice Isaac, how would Isaac and him both return to them? And we know that Abraham was righteous and that he wouldn't lie. He's not going to lie to.
Yeah, he's not going to lie about it.
You don't got nothing to lie about. So you got to read between the lines. And if you remembered the Most High promise to give Abraham children through the line of Isaac, then you would have known that Abraham knew, like, somehow, whether Hebrews confirms that Abraham believed that Isaac was going to be resurrected. But you could also argue that whether it was through resurrection, or that Abraham knew that somehow, some way, the Most High was going to intervene so that Isaac was going to live through that scenario.
Yeah.
Right. In that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they had to stay. So when you go through, and now we're up to where my notes are. Let's see what note I got on here. So verses 50 through 57. Isaac is made aware of him being the burnt offering and is joyful to obey the Most High. So like verse 50, it says, and when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, behold, I see here the fire and wood, and where then is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before the Most High? And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, the Most High has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that the Most High spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And
Yeah.
Abraham, oh, go ahead. Okay.
Oh, dude, it's just beautiful, man. It makes me tear up, man.
And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this? He even asked him, is there any thought or counsel concerning this which is not proper? Basically, do you got your heart right? Like, is you ready? Are you 100% committed to this?
Yeah.
Tell me, my son, I pray thee, oh my son, conceal it not from me. Basically, promise me. You need to reassure me that you don't have any doubts in your heart of what's about to happen. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said unto him, O my father, as the Most High liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that he has spoken to thee. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am joyful and cheerful heart in this matter, and I say, blessed is the Most High, who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac, and they went on and came together to that place that the Most High had spoken of. So verses 50 through 57 is that confirmation of when you read in Genesis the word and they went together. This is the agreement that the Hebrew is actually depicting, right? Isaac is letting his father know, listen, not only am I not mad or got any kind of evil feelings or thoughts about this, not only am I in agreement with this, but I'm actually praising and giving esteem to the Most High for allowing me the opportunity to be a burnt offering.
Yeah. See, he was like, oh wow. He was actually thankful that he was counted worthy. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Which actually goes further, like, you know, in Acts when Peter was getting you know, they were getting whipped outside the temple because they were, you know, speaking the gospel, you know. And Peter was like, look, you know, count this as joy because we're found worthy to suffer. You know what I'm saying? And Isaac was like, yeah, I'm just happy that I'm even worthy to be, you know, to be the offering. You know what I mean?
Facts. My next note was verses 58 through 61 and how Isaac basically helped Abraham
help him build the
altar.
Like, yep, all right, you're gonna kill me, so let's build this up.
You feel me? He helped him build the altar. Remember, I know Genesis says that Abraham built the altar, but you got to understand, Abraham was 130 plus.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with the 37 years old or not, he was 130 plus.
He was an old man. He's all feeble and stuff.
If you want to understand a lot of the rocks that was used to build altars, think of like the big cinder blocks that we have today. one half of that cinder block, but not hollow in the middle, like a full solid block, just a stone. That's how heavy and big those stones were. And they had to build the entire, oh, man, listen.
Yeah. No, it wasn't easy.
It was not easy.
Take you just about a whole day to do it.
It says, and Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Abraham was weeping. And Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before the Most High. And this is what Joel was saying earlier today. And Isaac said to his father, bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move and break loose from the force of the knife upon my chest, and therefore profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. Right? So let me tell you how profound this is. You don't really understand how profound this is. He said, not only are you going to bind me, he said, bind me securely. Make sure it's tight enough that when you stab me, I don't just move from like a reflex or flinch or have a last minute bit of fear and get scared and jump or try to block it or whatever the case when you come to cut the knife. He says, because I don't want to profane the burnt offering, meaning he doesn't even want to mess up in any way, shape, or form himself being that offering to the Most High. Do you understand how crazy that is? Like, not only am I okay to be killed, but make sure when you kill me, make sure you kill me right, because I don't want to mess this up. What?
Yeah.
Then he gives him instructions, because this is how you know that this shows the bond between Isaac and his mother Sarah. He gives his father instructions on what to do with her, how to break the news to her, make sure that she's not in a high place. It says she near a well or a high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. So he was worried that she was going to kill herself if she heard that, obviously, that Isaac had been killed. So, he gave his father last thing, like his last will and testament. And then let's see. And then the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Most High had commanded them, but the eye wept bitterly whilst their heart rejoiced. And this is something like, you might read this and be like, yeah, they were really sad that Isaac was getting ready to be sacrificed. But it says Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Most High had commanded them, but the eye wept bitterly whilst the heart rejoiced. So there's a mixed emotion, right? But majority of this emotion is what's mentioned in the text, in the context. They are rejoicing, they are praising, they are feeling grateful and honored to be chosen to even carry out this feat, this task by the Most High. They are full of emotion. And Abraham bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar upon the wood, and Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father, and Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before the Most High. At that time, the angels of mercy came before the Most High and spoke to him concerning Isaac. And they basically pleaded, and the Most High responded. And it says, at that time, the Most High appeared unto Abraham and called to him from heaven and said to him, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest the Most High in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket by his horns, and was the ram that the Most High had created in the earth in the day that he made earth and heaven. For the Most High had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. Now I read this, and this was profound to me because I missed this the first time. Like, if you look into my book where I got my highlights and stuff at, I missed this one. I highlighted it and underlined it for a different reason, but I missed this. It says that was the ram which the Most High had created in the earth in the day that he made earth and heaven. Meaning, it says,
From
the Most High had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. You can read that two ways. The only two ways that I can see from what I'm reading it in context was that the ram, that specific ram that was provided to be Isaac's substitute, was specifically created from the beginning, specifically for that purpose, and was provided for that purpose. Right, that specific ram. So that ram had to been, I don't know, however many hundreds or thousands of years to that
like
point,
1500.
or that the ram itself, the animal, the ram, was specifically created to be a sacrifice. Like that was it. The ram's purpose in life was to be the sacrifice. I'm leaning more towards that first one, but I could understand how you could get either or. But either way, whether it's, the Most High created the ram to be a sacrifice, the animal, the species of ram to be a sacrifice, or that specific ram to be the sacrifice, and he created the ram and preserved it for all of those years because he knew that ram's purpose was going to be the substitute. Like, I think that's cooler, right? That's like cooler.
That is cool.
But though that definitely stood. That was actually one of my notes too.
That was one of the mental notes I made. I forgot to write down.
It says, and this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his horns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham in order that Abraham might slay his son. Joe, check this out. So I saw this, but it didn't hit me. Right. So Satan caught hold of the ram and entangled his horns in the thicket. Right. Mm-hmm. And the people who put upon the crown of horns on the Messiah were also acting wickedly.
Yeah.
Because the crown of horns had no significance to the people who was crucifying him. That was just a way to mock him.
Yeah.
You feel me? And you already crucifying him, you're gonna already kill him. Why are you making a mockery?
Pull them apart.
Facts. It's like, why are you mocking them? And it seems as though they were just acting out prophecy from their father.
Mm-hmm. Another significance of the thorns is one of the curses when Adam ate the fruit. The Most High says that thorns and thistles are going to come out of the ground, and that was one of the curses, because before then there was no thorns and thistles. It was all this regular plant,
all good greenery.
Yeah, it was all good greenery stuff, and then that was part of the curse of Adam eating the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so the thorn, not only it's like so multi-layered, it's so great. But see, the thorns being placed on Messiah's head, actually him taking off that curse as well from the earth.
All praises to the Most High.
Yeah, it's great, man.
All praises to the Most High.
So great.
And the last account that I had notes from, I had a few from Jubilees, just like two.
Mm-hmm.
I had one from.
One second, I'll be right back.
Jubilees 18. Okay. Jubilees 18 and verse 4, and this was the third witness that's in agreement with the book of Jasher and the Genesis 22 account. It says, and he came to a well of water, and he said to his young men, abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad shall go yonder, and when we have worshipped, we shall come again to you. the third account. Nothing else need to be said with that. My other note was verses 9 through 11. It says, and I stood before him and before the prince Mastema. Okay, so the prince Mastema is Satan. Okay, whenever you see the word Mastema, sometimes it's referenced as Prince Mastema, other times is mentioned as just Mastema. And this is also confirmed in the book of Enoch as well. And I'm pretty sure, I have a book of Adam and Eve. Mastema is also mentioned in there. And he might be mentioned in other accounts as well. But whenever you see Prince Mastema or Mastema, know that that's Satan. It says, and I stood before him and before the Prince Mastema, and the Most High said, bid him not to lay his hand on the lad, nor to do anything to him, for I have shown that he fears the Most High. And I called to him from heaven and said unto him, Abraham, Abraham. And he was terrified and said, behold, here am I. And I said unto him, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do anything to him. For now I have shown that thou fearest the Most High, and hast not withheld thy son, thy firstborn son, from me. Right? So, you see the account again, backing up the account that's talked about in the book of Jasher. But yeah, definitely check out Prince Mastema. Look into Prince Mastema, and you'll see that it's talking about Mastema. Oh, and the Prince Mastema, verse 12. Here we go. And the Prince Mastema was put to shame, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a ram caught by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. Right. So it says that the Prince Mastema, or Satan, was put to shame. Basically, he lost the bet. He tried to basically tempt the Most High, or bait and switch and all of that stuff. And then the Most High basically called his bluff. He told Abraham to do it, and it was good. It was done. But that was most of my notes. Definitely most of my notes. Oh, yeah, bro. When I was doing this, look, check this out. So I was looking for different writings, and in the Testament of Isaac, I was looking for the word sacrifice to see what would be like brought together with sacrifice with Isaac, like an association. And it says, let my sacrifice be acceptable before thee. Do not reject me because of my sins, but receive me unto thee in spite of my many sins, like a sheep that has gone astray. Most High, who has been with our father Adam and Abel and Noah, and our father Abraham and his son Isaac, who has been with Jacob, be thou with me also. Receive my sacrifice from my hand. As you recite all this, take your sacrifice and offer it, and strive him. No, I know it's I think it was 1 in 6, chapter 6, and then the other one was in verse 13. Okay, when Abraham Oh no, so sorry. The heavens and the earth were filled of the soothing odor of our father Isaac, like choice silver. This is the sacrifice of our father Isaac, the patriarch. When Abraham offered him as a sacrifice to the Most High, the soothing odor of Isaac's sacrifice went up into the heavens. And it says, blessed is every man who performs an act of mercy in the name of these patriarchs, right? But it mentioned that a odor, like,
if you remember in Jubilees, it says that that when Abraham killed the ram, he sprinkled his blood all over the altar, and he said, "Let this blood be in the place of my son Isaac."
Yep. Hold on, I got it right here. Hold on. Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Right there. Right there. Right there.
Yeah.
And there was another quick look part on it. Because it was like what you had to do in order to sacrifice. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Do not offer a sacrifice with a blemish in it, and wash yourself with water when you approach the altar. Do not mix the thoughts of the world with the thoughts of the Most High when you stand before him. Do your utmost to be at peace with everyone when you stand before the Most High, and offer your sacrifice. When you come to offer it on the altar, you should recite privately 100 prayers to the Most High, and make this confession to the Most High, saying, O Abba, the incomprehensible, the unfathomable, the unattainable, the pure treasure, purify me. Purify me in love, for I am flesh and blood, and I run defiled to thee, that thou mayest purify me. I come burdened, and I ask that thou mayest lighten my burden. A fire will burn wood, and thy mercy will take away mine iniquities. Forgive me that am a sinner. I forgive the whole creation that thou hast made. I have no complaint against anyone. I am at peace with all that is made in thine image. I am unmoved by all the evil reasonings that have been brought before me. I am thy servant and the son of thy maidservant. I am the one who sins. Thou art the one who forgives. Forgive me and enable me to stand in thy holy place, that my sacrifice be acceptable before thee. Do not reject me because of my sins, but receive me unto thee in spite of my many sins, like a sheep that has gone astray. The Most High, who has been with our father Adam and Abel and Noah, and our father Abraham and his son Isaac, who has been with Jacob, be thou with me also, and receive my sacrifice from my hand. So when I read this earlier, it made the connection to what Isaac was saying, right? Mm-hmm. And what Abraham was asking Isaac. Before we go up to this mountain and do this sacrifice, make sure you good. Make sure you right with the Most High. And so when I read this sacrifice, it was like more of an internalizing aspect, but basically Abraham and Isaac was checking off these boxes that this prayer from the Testament of Isaac is talking about. Now, I haven't read this entire.
That's great with that, man, that I've actually never read that, but something
before this study
that is that it's virtually the same thing Messiah says in Matthew 5, I think, when he says, whenever you're bringing your sacrifice to the altar, if you remember that you have something against your brother, go and make peace with your brother first, before you give, and then come back and give sacrifice. And that's exactly what I said right there, man.
Yeah, awesome. Like I'm gonna get the hardcover of this because I like to have physical books.
Yeah.
But this one right here, man, the Testament of Isaac. I found it right here, the PDF version. Because I was just trying to see if there was any other writings that had Isaac and Abraham in it, and the account of the Akedah, to be able to make notes and be able to bring it up. But it seemed like a good read. I only read about 2 chapters worth, but it's not that big. This entire thing is only 13 chapters, so it's not that long of a read. You could probably finish this in a day.
That's good stuff, though.
Did you have any other notes or any other things that you wanted to bring out?
You know what? Hold on, here it is. I guess we could finish up with James 2.
Okay.
I think we already did read it, but I think it's good to go over and read it again,
Got you.
From James 2, 21 through 23. And just James 2. And then we'll see where we go with it. Go to 21. Was not Abraham, our father, justified by works when he offered Isaac, his son, upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was his faith made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which said, Abraham believed Elohim, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of Elohim. So, it's not simply about our works. If we're doing works and we don't have faith, it doesn't even matter what we do, But if we have faith and we don't have works, then what good is our faith? Because we're not acting upon it. You know what I'm saying? If you have true faith, you act upon it, And here we see that it wasn't simply faith and it wasn't simply work that justified Abraham, but it was by works that his faith was made perfect. And that's something we have to really look at ourselves and say, hey, are we doing that? Are we doing this stuff simply just to do it, or so that we have bragging rights or whatever, or are we doing this because we have? Is it because of our faith that we're doing it? Are we doing this, because we believe what the Most High says? And that's something we all need to look inwardly and examine ourselves and see, and see if that's really what the case is, so that our faith can be made perfect,
Yeah.
Because Abraham was called a friend of Elohim. He was a friend of God, And personally, that's what I would like to be. Would like to be called a friend of God. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Because Abraham could have had faith, right? He could have had faith with no works in this situation, where when he was instructed to go and take his son Isaac onto the altar, he could have had faith in knowing that the Most High was going to fulfill his promise. However, if he didn't have works, he would have had some kind of doubt and not actually carried out the task at hand. Or it could have been he had works and no faith, where he just did it, but he didn't believe in his heart that the Most High was going to fulfill that promise. And then he might have thought that him sacrificing his son Isaac would have just been losing his son forever. But since he had faith and works that were coupled together, he was able to, and Chuck Missler says this the best way. He said, do you see the perfect example of obedience here from Abraham? That's perfect obedience.
Yeah.
The Most High gave Abraham a task. Abraham had one, he loved the Most High enough to be obedient to the Most High, but he had faith enough that the Most High was going to carry out what he had promised him. And then he acted upon all of those things and went forth and did it. It was perfection.
Yeah.
It was an exhibit of perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this was a good one, bro. This is a good one.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I'm definitely, and this study ain't even over with for me. Like we talked offline, and I was like, man, I got a lot more stuff to get into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot.
Yeah, it never ends, man. Never ends, man. You just study and study and study forever, man.
Because you kicked it off, you was going into Galatians, and I was like, yo, I didn't even think about that. Because I hadn't even went into the Messiah's account. Like everything that I was quoting in comparison to the Messiah was off of memory from my previous studies and readings. So I know that if I go into the Messiah's account, I might be able to make some more connections.
Oh, dude, that's another beautiful thing, man. When Messiah was talking about Abraham longed to see my day, and he saw it, he rejoiced, right? And then they're all like, "What? You're not even 50 years old. Have you seen Abraham?"
Yeah.
It's great stuff. Because he said Abraham saw his day. You know what I'm saying? So whether that was a typology in going to sacrifice Isaac, or if it was, but actually that would be, because the ram being substituted for Isaac, instead of going through the door of death, right, walking into life. You know what I'm saying? In a figure, Abraham did see that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I actually have a tendency to believe Messiah's words were a lot more literal than people would think. So, I mean, did Abraham actually see the vision of Messiah when he was doing that? You know what I mean? Maybe.
That's why I have to read this.
What is it?
The Apocalypse of Abraham. That's why I'm going to read this, because I'm going to find out the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Brother Lucas told me about this book, and so I had to get it. I hadn't got into it yet, but it's coming.
Lucas told me about that.
Yeah, he was telling me about this. So basically, Abraham gets a vision, and is shown a bunch of different things about the apocalypse and stuff like that. So maybe in this book, in this account, Abraham either sees the Messiah, speaks to the Messiah, or is made aware of the revelation of how the typology with him sacrificing Isaac, or getting ready to sacrifice Isaac, is fulfilling what was to come with the Messiah coming onto the scene. So I'm excited. I want to check out that book. I got a couple other books too that I want to read.
Yeah, man. So Apocalypse of Abraham, and you got another one?
Oh, shoot. What's it called? It's over here. What is it? I'll get with you offline. I bought like 5 new books in the last couple months. So
Okay.
the Marriage and Divorce, Divorce and Remarriage, the Apocalypse of Abraham, and it was like 3 other books that I got.
Yeah.
Listen, awesome. Anything else? Hey, I got all night, bro.
Oh, well, I mean, I could always go on to more, but I don't know.
But this was definitely a good one.
Yeah. Hey, perhaps perhaps in the future we could go through Torah portions and just both of us make independent notes without speaking with each other about it and see what we come up with.
Okay. I'm down.
Might be good.
Hey, I'm down. Cause we didn't even really share notes with this. Like you were doing your notes, I was doing my notes.
Interesting thing was everything that I had forgotten to write down and that I had forgotten about, you brought up. And then I was like, yeah, I meant to talk about that too. You know?
That's how the Most High be, man. Listen.
Yeah. So it's starting to work out.
All praises. Cause you catch stuff that I don't catch.
And you catch stuff I don't catch.
You be looking like you always drop like profound gems. It goes like, you know what I mean? So that's why I love doing these things with you.
Well, thanks, man. Nah, I mean, I just look, man. I'm trying to find the truth, man. I'm digging for gems, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'd have been in this thing for what, 15 years, you said?
Oh, 14, 15.
15. Yeah, you've been in this for a while. I'm a young buck trying to get up there. Literally, like in terms of biblical studies, I'm a young buck trying to get up there. I've only been studying the Bible for probably about 8 years.
Yeah.
Coming into the truth and renouncing Christianity, I've only been studying the Bible with the different lens for about a little over 4. So got a long way to go. Long way to go.
It was like the opposite for me, and I left it all and just was like, I basically became an agnostic because I was like, you can't know if any of it, you know, and it was several things that I was just like, oh wow, yeah, you can know that it's true, you know, and just changed my whole mindset around it, and I just started digging into the scripture again, you know. I had grown up going to church, and then I left all that, and then came back and looked at it from a fresh perspective, you know. Once I realized that it could be verified that scripture was true, I was like, wow, let me dig into this and see what else I can find, you know. And it kept on going, man. Kept on going.
That should be another Shabbat talk we do. The validity of the Bible.
Oh yeah.
We should like get all of the things that we know about and be able to like just drop this plethora of just proof, whether it be biblical, historical, biological, scientific, whatever.
Yeah.
Any truths that we can figure out, we can compile them and then just spend like a whole Shabbat talk, or even 2 if it's a bunch of information, split it up and just knock it out like that. I'm down for that. Because it's one thing trying to speak to the masses, and you got different people from all different walks of life. Some people are Christians, some people are Hebrew Israelites, some people are like you were an agnostic, some people are complete atheists who just deny the existence of the Most High altogether, and they question the validity of the scripts and the texts. Some people accept only the 66 books of the Bible, and they don't accept these other, what they call extra canonical or non-canonical writings, apocryphal writings, like the Apocrypha and the Book of Enoch and Jasher and Jubilees and the Dead Sea Scrolls and whatever else that it was the Gospel of Thomas, Aquarian Gospel. There's a bunch of different writings out there that a lot of people just, if it's not in the 66, then it can't be true. It's not right. And I'm like, bro, do y'all understand that the Bible came from the Council of Nicaea? and that there were over 200 manuscripts that were all being taught and recited from as canonical scripture, and they picked and choose and only got like 100 out of those 200, and they pulled some of them out and just kept taking them out until you eventually
Actually,
got
the Council of Nicaea almost left out the Gospel of John and Book of Revelation.
Yeah, I could see why.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
They completely, they just wanted to keep the books that they could use to fulfill their agenda, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's just like Peter said, that it's in Scripture around agendas.
My mom put the white charger in here, so my dad.
Okay, I'm not worried about your charger right now.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, my daughter's been bringing me fruit the whole time.
Hey, that's a good one. All he bringing me is his problems.
I just bring you problems. You gonna say hi now?
Hi.
Kari, you remember Joel?
Can't see you for some reason. There we go.
Restless. You got to work tomorrow?
No.
I'm off too.
Mm.
Look at that. Look at the Most High. But yeah, man, this was a good one. I'm not gonna hold you. I know it's getting late, but we definitely got to do this one again. Definitely got to do this one again.
It's kind of dark. It's the moon. It's a moon. Look, it's the moon.
And I also uploaded the 25 minutes of the Chuck Missler Akedah video too.
Oh yeah.
To the page as a prelude to this one. So once this renders, I'll put this up and then they'll go together. And then from watching that and this, I mean, you're gonna be a pro at Akedah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's awesome. Heck yeah.
All right, well, I hope you guys got something out of this video, whether it be something you learned, something that will open your eyes to something different, gave you a different perspective, different understanding. But hope you got something, hope you was edified in some way. We try to do these every Shabbat. Sometimes we miss a Shabbat, life happens, but we'll be keep coming back with different videos and different topics and stuff like that. So with that being said, I hope you guys be safe. Have a wonderful, blessed day. The Shabbat is now coming to an end. It's dark outside for us over here now. And if you don't got kids, don't be in a rush to get them. All right, brother, you take it easy, man. I love you.
Hey, I love you too, man. Shalom, bro.
Shalom. Say shalom.
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 Shalom.